Hello and welcome to Destination Draft Day, your one-stop spot for all things NFL draft, pro football, and college football talk. Nick Durst here. I'm Michael Rochman. We have a lot to talk to you guys about in what will be our last episode for the year of 2021. A very interesting year, that's for sure, with so much to talk about in terms of, the recapping the year of the quarterback in terms of the NFL draft, what has maybe not been so much year of a quarterback for the rookie season. We'll talk MVP. We'll talk college football playoff. We'll talk the current bowl games going on right now. The NFL games are going to start right when we end the show. There is so much to talk about. But first and foremost, Nick, let's talk about how your day is going. How are you?
What's up, Michael? Good to be back. You're back at the Ohio headquarters. Your first time returning to Ohio since the Ohio State Buckeyes had a very disappointing end to their season. So I guess maybe you were their good luck charm, but once you left, it was all downhill. We got some football coming up right after our show ends, and we have the Raiders take on the Browns. And at this point, I don't really care who's playing quarterback for the Browns. I'm picking against the Raiders. They were just disgustingly horrible last week. And I'm going to say the Browns win this. This would put the Browns then in first place in their division because they have the tiebreaker with the Bengals.
This is a huge game for the Browns. And it seems to be at the most inopportune times with everyone seeming to be out for COVID. Hopefully, we get a good game. Nick Mullins at quarterback makes me lean Raiders for this one. They've been such a weird team all season. They kind of show up when they have to, and then they just blow games that could easily put them in a good spot for the rest of the year. It's been one of the streakiest teams in football. 5 losses in their past 6 games, just disappointing results so far. This is a team that really seemed to be building on a lot of momentum, and their one win came against the Dallas Cowboys, which you wouldn't expect if they were to win one game. What game would it be? You wouldn't say the Cowboys game, but a lot of shaky performances to where you could very easily entertain the idea the Browns win tonight. But I think I'm going with the Raiders to win this one, get back on track, get 7-7, and just continue the chaos that is the AFC playoff picture.
The other game tonight, Vikings-Bears, huge one for the Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins and the Vikings will win this one, keep pace with the Saints to go for that last playoff spot in the NFC. Saints shut out the Buccaneers last night. Who saw that one coming?
Yeah, it was absolutely a shock. I wouldn't have been surprised if you said the Bucs struggled, but shut out, hold them to 0 points, only score 9, get away with the victory. They did everything you could ask for. Now Chris Godwin out for the season with the torn ACL. The Bucs, they're definitely dealing with some damage. They need to get healthy before playoffs. Even without Godwin, I think they're still a very good contender, assuming they get back and healthy. And that's really kind of been the biggest question mark about this season for them. Will they get back and get to that state?
Well, good thing for them is Antonio Brown will be back next week. So that'll be huge for them as far as the wide receiver position is concerned. And, the Packers narrowly escape with a win yesterday against the Ravens. Ravens now cost themselves 2 wins by going for 2 points. Didn't feel too good about the Packers come out of that game, but I guess it's pretty clear they're the best team right now in the NFC. But maybe the Ravens just are actually good, and people should start giving them some credit. Good job by Huntley there, QB, for the full game. And, of course, he was pretty good last week in relief of Jackson as well.
Yeah, Huntley looked pretty impressive. He was making plays with both his legs and with his arm. The Ravens stayed in a game that I think a lot of people assumed Packers would dominate without Lamar Jackson, and it absolutely wasn't the case. What's very interesting, though, is, kind of going back to that last conversation about Bucs and Saints, this MVP picture is wide open, and I think Aaron Rodgers right now probably the leading candidate. You got to consider Jonathan Taylor, but the running back position seems to be consistently spurned when it comes to the MVP. So, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's still in it, but he can't have any more games like that or else he might be out. You can consider Josh Allen, Stafford, Kyler Murray, I guess, could still build that momentum. But, is Aaron Rodgers your leader for this MVP race? And do you think the Packers have to finish strong in order for him to kind of hold on to that? Or do you think he's got a big enough lead right now?
Well, I think going into yesterday, Brady had a pretty big lead, but when you get shut out and you lose for the second time in the season to the Saints, it's pretty close now. I would say it's still too close to call. It's definitely going to be between the two of them. Jonathan Taylor, he's probably going to rush for 2,000 yards. He's going to have a lot of touchdowns, but like you said, they don't give it to the running back. So I think right now, probably you got to give the favorite to Aaron Rodgers, because the fact of the matter is usually the 1 seed gets the MVP, and that's the way it's been for a little bit of time now. There's been some years it hasn't happened, but I think right now, you got to go with Aaron Rodgers because the Packers, Michael, are going to get the 1 seed, I believe.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree that the Packers seem destined for it. The division is kind of falling apart, so the schedule that they're going to have to face is a little bit easier than some of these other divisions. I mean, the Bucs do get the Panthers twice, so that's going to be nice, but really the Packers have to beat the Browns, the Vikings, and the Lions. They're favorites in all 3 of those games. I think they have the momentum with them. 14-3, 13-4 should be good. In terms of getting that 1 seed, maybe it gets them to that 2 spot. The whole playoff picture, while we kind of got a good idea on what these teams are going to be for those 6 seeds in the NFC, it's very jumbled in terms of seeding. So really interesting to see what's going to happen in that one. I think I lean with you that the Packers are going to be there. Looks like Cardinals, a team that went, I think, 9-0 into the season and now might be a wild card team. So just a very crazy jumbled mess.
I don't think the Rams are going to jump the Cardinals.
You don't think so?
Well, I mean, they have to. The Cardinals are going to have to lose 2 more times, and the Rams have to win out. I don't know what the tiebreaker is, though, because they did split in the regular season.
I don't think it's 2 more times because Rams are 9-4 right now. Cardinals are 10-4.
All right, so the Cardinals will have to lose again, and the Rams have to win out. So I don't know. I think the Cardinals are going to be okay. I don't believe in the Rams too much. They got a pretty easy game versus the Seahawks for Tuesday Night Football tomorrow night. Beyond that, I think the Cardinals got to play the Colts, so that's definitely going to be a tough one, as you saw firsthand. But the Rams got to play the Vikings, so they're going to be playing for their playoff lives. To me, I'd still go with the Cardinals to hang on and go in the division. We know that it looks like the 49ers are going to get a playoff spot, so that really leaves the last playoff spot up to Washington football team or the Eagles, who are playing each other, so that's going to cancel out for the most part. One of them, the Vikings, and the Saints, who picked up the big victory last night for the NFC. But let's talk about the Colts. I was stunned, Michael, that off a bye week, Belichick and the Patriots were not prepared for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts have to be considered one of the hottest teams in football right now. Obviously, they are just trending everywhere in the right direction and upsetting probably the other team that was contending with them for that hottest team in football. They now really are kind of in the driver's seat for looking like one of the best AFC teams. You can make an argument that they are the best AFC team. I think there's a very real chance that we see Indianapolis versus Kansas City in the conference championship for the AFC. I think the way the Colts are built, their physicality really benefits them when it comes to playoff football. I think they're kind of similar to the Browns in that regard. There's still some issues. There's still some holes. Carson Wentz still has to get going. I think he kind of had some issues against the Patriots that may result in some issues later on. But, this is a very good team. And I think right now, games against the Raiders, games against the Jaguars, they should be able to win those ones and at least be able to finish out 10-7, 11-6. And they could be probably that top playoff wildcard team. And I think from there, they just continue on. And, man, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's been absolutely huge. Frank Reich is just a phenomenal coach. And this Colts team is very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, right now the AFC is really interesting. Thursday night we had the Chargers have a mental breakdown for the most part, refusing to kick field goals. They left 17 points on the board, Michael. If they just would have kicked the ball and the Chiefs win that game, Chargers now could be in some trouble when it comes to making the playoffs. They should have won that game. They would have been in first place in the AFC West. How about your Dolphins? You picked them preseason, 6 in a row now. They get to 7-7. They got a shot for the wild card here. Big win for them against the Jets. But I ultimately think you got to worry a little bit about your Patriots here because the Bills, they got right yesterday. And they actually looked good, I thought, in defeat against the Buccaneers last week. They just didn't win the coin toss. So bad luck there. So now they're going to play again, the Bills and Patriots. That's going to determine who's going to win the East. And then from there, the other person's going to have to really fight and claw for the other team's going to have to fight and claw for a wild card because you got the Chargers, as I mentioned, they're still 8-6. The Ravens, Bengals, and Browns and Steelers are all in it. They're all over 500. And you got the Colts and Titans battling. So a lot of good teams in the AFC. So the next Bills-Patriots game is going to be tremendous.
Yeah, I think this is an absolutely, tight sprint for the end of this. Even the Dolphins, could somehow manage to win this division now with the way they've been winning. But, really, it's going to be an interesting game for this Patriots-Bills matchup that we're going to get day after Christmas. A lot of talent on both sides. I think the Bills are probably going to be the favorite in that one, even though the Patriots were able to win, because this is going to be a whole different game. It's not going to be this wind fest where neither team can really pass the ball more than 10 times in the game. This is going to be one where the Bills really kind of open up their offense and rely on the passing game, which has been so crucial for their offense. So it's definitely going to favor the Bills in terms of just new weather environment, but I still think that there is a lot to be optimistic about for the Patriots to potentially win this one. And, right now, the bias side of me wants to take the Patriots, and I'm listening to the bias, and I'm gonna say Patriots win it, get their number 10 victory. Bills, though, they need this because if they fall to 8-7, they're sitting outside of this playoff picture, and they could very easily be down in the down in that double-digit type range for the standings. So a lot of wild potential possibilities in this game.
Right now, Michael, my preseason Super Bowl pick is the Packers and the Bills, and I'm going to continue with that. I think the Bills beat the Patriots, and I think they actually have a shot then to get the 1 seed because I don't think the Chiefs are going to have the easiest go about it with the Steelers and the Bengals. I think there is a chance there for them to get tripped up. Neither of us have loved the Chiefs this season. I think they've gotten lucky a lot in the ways they've won games. Obviously, the Giants didn't have Daniel Jones, and they looked pretty bad against them. They beat the Packers barely without Aaron Rodgers. So, to me, I think the Super Bowl winner, I think, is coming from the NFC this year. But the AFC is just very, very well balanced. And we have to talk about yesterday where the Lions get a huge win. The Texans beat the Jaguars. And now the Jaguars are on the clock, Michael. They're back at the 1 spot. And they have their quarterback. So to me, it seems like an easy decision. You have to take Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, it's between Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux. I lean Thibodeaux in that situation. I think he offers the better scheme fit first and foremost with his versatility that he can offer on the edge, can drop into coverage as needed, and I think he fits extremely well with Josh Allen kind of in that defense, being able to kind of switch things up. But there's a lot of possibilities for Aiden Hutchinson. There's a realistic case to be made. A lot of teams like to have that kind of versatility where, Josh Allen could be your weak side edge rusher and then Aiden Hutchinson strong side. Both very good in terms of defending the run. I think both have a lot of good power in the pass game. I think Hutchinson is the better power rusher. Thibodeaux is the better run stopper and finesse rusher. So really, it's going to come down to preference, I think. There's a lot of potential for both these guys. There's a lot of athleticism. There's a lot of optimism on both. So really, when you look at these teams, when you look at these prospects, there's nothing that you can really pick and say, oh, this isn't going to work out. I think both these guys are very safe players, safe prospects with high upside that should be long-term starters at the very least.
As far as the Jaguars go, obviously they need a coach now. A lot of talk going into yesterday about Brian Leftwich, but that I don't think that would be a good choice. Obviously, you saw what happened yesterday in the game, but to me, I think they should be looking at Don Martindale from the Ravens or Brian Dabble from the Bills. I think those are two guys they should look towards go offense. But what do you think as far as the Jaguars? Should they be looking for a defensive coordinator guy, offensive coordinator, or a former head coach?
Yeah, I like Byron Leftwich just because of the idea of him being back in Jacksonville. I think Todd Bowles is another guy that you could very easily bring in and feel pretty confident about with just how well he's done. And I think we kind of saw it with the Jets. He was kind of overachieving, and then he left, and the Jets turned into a dumpster fire of an organization. Really, there's a lot of options out there. I like Brian Dabble. I said it before the draft this past year, or this past draft at least, that I love Brian Dabble wherever Justin Fields lands. And hopefully, Chicago opens up their head coaching position, hires Dabble, just because I think that's a great fit in terms of kind of getting someone who will play to their needs. But Dabble's going to do that anywhere. So in a place like Jacksonville where he can work with Trevor Lawrence, I think he does the same thing as well. I think there's a lot of options out there. There's going to be talk about guys like Kellen Moore. There's going to be talks about guys like Pete Carmichael for New Orleans. But ultimately, I think the big thing is trying to find someone who, like Saleh, is extremely focused on the teamwork aspect of it all, because everything reported out of Urban Meyer was just abysmal in terms of just kind of egocentric, horrible leadership, horrible team building, horrible source of foundation for an organization that needs one. So whoever they hire, I think it's going to be a team guy, someone that a lot of people have just spoken highly of in terms of just being a character builder. And then you kind of hope to get those, developmental guys as your coordinators and staff options.
Interesting. Yeah, I think they should try to get somebody with experience, but definitely need to get somebody who's going to build some team chemistry. That's for sure. So the second pick right now would be the Lions. Third pick would be the Texans. Are either of these teams going to reach and take Kenny Pickett with the second or third pick?
I don't know if it's going to be Pickett, but I could see the quarterback being a consideration. I think Malik Willis is probably going to be the guy that ends up at the top of this list whenever it's all said and done. Based on my reports, at least, that's who I have as my top guy. I think there's a lot of potential there in terms of arm talent, mobility. 23 years old, which may not be as enticing as some of the younger options, but still, he has plenty of potential. A lot of rawness to his game that's going to need to be covered up early and then, kind of played to his strength. I think he fits extremely well in Detroit, where you can kind of lay the foundation for him. You can plan around him. You don't have to kind of revamp your roster to fit what he may need. But at the same time, I think there is probably better talents that are a little bit safer for these organizations, to where you kind of pass on quarterback. You give Goff another year. You give Mills another year.
Goff looked good yesterday.
Yeah, he really did. And I don't think maybe that Goff is your long-term option, or maybe even that you stick with him the full season. But I do think that with a pick this high and the talent disparity between the positions, you pick who you view as the top player on the board. And then maybe with that later first, if there's a QB you like, you pick them. But if not, then you give Goff another year and you really kind of see how well you can build the rest of this roster. So whatever rookie QB does end up there, whoever steps in can really kind of find success when they do step in.
I think if Kenny Pickett is on the board when it's time for the Steelers to pick, they should be running to the podium to draft him. I think he'd be a perfect fit there. Obviously, we know he's playing for Pittsburgh, so we'll see what happens. But maybe Big Ben says, I'm going to stick around for another year, because nothing's confirmed yet at this point, Michael. And right now, it looks like the Steelers got a shot to potentially make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this Pittsburgh team, and I think this offseason is going to be one of the most interesting for Pittsburgh Steelers fans in a long time, because with Roethlisberger off the books, with some easy reworkings of contracts, they can easily create a lot of space. They get into like the 60, 70 million range. So they can probably go and get a quarterback while still having plenty of space to revamp the offensive line, while still being able to potentially go out and find a cornerback too, opposite of Joe Hayden, while being able to retain a lot of their free agents that really, it's not a bad free agent class for them. So they are in a great position to build a very good team. I think right now, if you're saying, look, the Steelers are going to be very aggressive in free agency, go out, find a new quarterback that's a veteran option, a Rodgers, a Wilson, something like that. I think I would probably pick them as a Super Bowl favorite because we know their defense is going to be there. We know that they have weapons on this offense. If they can get a quarterback that really kind of opens up this field, if they can revamp the offensive line just a little bit, they are going to be one of the best rosters in the NFL.
Well, from one of the best to one of the worst, the Jets, they'll be picking fourth at this point. I think they're going to pretty much be locked in there. A lot of needs for them. They need talent at the skill positions, but they also, maybe they need a offensive lineman. Becton's been out the whole season. They need defensive linemen, corners, safeties. I mean, unlimited possibilities there. They're going to have 2 picks in the top 10 with the Seahawks pick. And the Giants, looks like they're going to have back-to-back picks with their pick at 5 and the Bears pick at 6. I don't know if they necessarily need to draft a quarterback here, but they need to address quarterback in the offseason. I think Daniel Jones is fragile at this point. He's done pretty poorly. They've been missing on all their picks recently. So whether they're making a trade for Russell Wilson or, I'd be happy with them signing a Marcus Mariota or Mitch Trubisky and giving them a chance to start. But I think the Giants, they should be, if they're drafting back-to-back, they should consider drafting 2 offensive linemen back-to-back because their offensive line has been a major issue for about 5 years right now, Michael. So what offensive lineman could you see potentially falling with the New York teams?
Yeah, so for both teams, I mean, you're looking at guys like Evan Neal, Kenyon Green, Ike Ekwonu as some of the top players in this class. And, I think they fit in very well. You're looking at a guy that with Evan Neal, you're looking at a 6'7", 340-pound tackle that can easily play anywhere you need. With Ekwonu, he's a guy that can play guard or tackle. He's extremely talented, extremely physical, great run blocker. And then for Kenyon Green, he's played left tackle this year for Texas A&M, but he is a dominant offensive guard that needs to stay inside, in my opinion, at the NFL level. Overall, though, all 3 of these guys are going to be first-round picks. So I think are going to be very strong foundation building blocks for whatever organization selects them. What's going to be interesting, though, is the Giants, if they're looking at a quarterback, they may not want to look into the draft pool. And with the capital that they have, with 2 top 10 picks, they're probably the leader in terms of being able to trade for an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson or maybe even a Deshaun Watson. And while, there's plenty of question marks about this team and roster and if they can really bring in this quarterback and maybe make that jump, I think getting the QB is the biggest part of a kind of retooling of a roster. A lot of these guys on this roster have plenty of talent. You have Barkley for another year. You have Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard. Maybe you have to trade Darius Slayton in the trade, but you still have Kadarius Toney. And it's not too hard to kind of rework contracts to where you can make the window you can take advantage of your window once you bring in that quarterback. So if you want, you can become like the Bucs and just kind of push the mess off to like all these back years and open up the chance to bring in guys that will help protect your quarterback and really kind of solidify this team. And if they can revamp the offensive line just a little bit, I think Thomas and Gates can return. You need an offensive guard or 2. You need a right tackle kind of solidified. If you can find maybe another weapon, I think, in terms of just a running back in this class where once Barkley has his games where he maybe needs to get a little bit of relief, he has someone. And you can maybe look at Booker for that. But I think ultimately, the Giants have a good enough foundation in place to where if they can find a game changer at quarterback, it elevates them to where they're contending for the NFC East. And, once you get into playoffs, any QB and any team can really make anything happen. And the Giants certainly have the pieces in place to where I wouldn't be shocked if, one Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson completely flips the script for them and moves them from a team that's, sitting outside of playoffs every year to a real contender when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The defense has been solid for the most part. I mean, they're just eventually they get gassed because they're on the field nonstop because the offense is horrible. I could tell you this: if Daniel Jones is back next year for the Giants, they'll be picking in the top 6 again, no doubt about it. I think I'm with you. Get a quarterback, build up the offensive line. Maybe sign a pass rusher in free agency or something. But other than that, I mean, I think skill-wise, they have very talented players. Sterling Shepard's a free agent. I don't think they're going to bring him back with Tony, and they wasted a lot of money on Galladay, who's barely been on the field. Engram can't catch a ball, so maybe they could trade him to get some big assets. But the Giants, I think, get the QB, get the offensive line, and you could quickly turn it around in the very weak NFC East. But yeah, I mean, they're just missing so many picks. They could have had Micah Parsons, right? So they passed up on him, and I'm sure he's we've seen him frequent Rochman's Rookies of the Week plenty of times this season.
Yeah, he's just been an absolute menace on the field whenever it comes to, just top rookies in terms of play. Obviously, this week he didn't make it, unfortunately for him, but still plenty of dominant play, and he's just going to continue to probably be on these lists as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job actually in coverage against the Giants. I think he was one-on-one with Galladay and was able to break up the pass. So he's definitely a difference maker.
I mean, even when he's not making this list, he's probably putting up a good week. It's not necessarily a down week for him. I think I just hold him to an unfair standard, so I'm snubbing him when he's not putting up like Hall of Fame numbers now.
Right. Well, Cowboys defense has looked great. I mean, they're leading the league in turnovers. But I don't know. I just don't really have faith that they could win in the playoffs. I think the Rams, if they're the wild card matchup that they'd ultimately face, I think the Rams would beat them.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. The Cowboys just come out flat way too often. I don't know what it is with Dak this year, but he's just been extremely sporadic in terms of week in, week out performances. And it's kind of halted this offense at times. And, even against the Giants where they put up 21 and had a comfortable win, it wasn't a great offensive game. And I think there's just a lot of work to be done if you're the Cowboys in terms of making that jump from a team that maybe is taking advantage of a weaker division to actually being a legitimate contender when it comes to playoff time.
All right. So before Rockman's Rookies of the Week here, just to close out some NFL talk, right now, who would you favor to get to the Super Bowl?
Oh man, it's tough. I think I lean the Chiefs on the AFC. They've done enough in my mind to make me feel comfortable in what they can do. The win streak, 7 games in a row, has just been impressive. They've kind of fixed a lot of the issues defensively. There's still some question marks about this team, but I think they've done what's necessary in order for me to feel confident about what they can do. Outside of that, I think the Colts are their biggest competition. And I said that earlier. I think they could very easily get into that Super Bowl picture. But on the other side, I think I'm still going with the Bucs. Godwin is a huge blow, but Antonio Brown back is going to be big. I think the Saints have just kind of been the Bucs' kryptonite. It's not necessarily a reflection of what the Bucs will be. We've talked about it. I feel like the Bucs have kind of treated the regular season as a little bit of a practice run in terms of getting ready for playoff football, where they'll get like a 10-point lead and then try to push the ball downfield a little bit more, try some concepts that maybe they haven't been going with regularly. And then once we get to playoffs, we'll see this ground and pound offense. We'll see Brady operating the short game and really kind of controlling these performances in a lot better fashion. 3 wins in a row to end the season, I would assume, with Panthers, Jets, Panthers. So that'll be nice, kind of getting the momentum back from the Saints loss. It'll be very much in the rearview mirror. They'll head into playoffs 13-4, maybe a number 1 seed. And if they have that 1 spot, then they are in a very good picture or a very good place to potentially run away with this thing. But I think I'm going Bucs Chiefs rematch, and I'll take the Bucs in the victory.
All right. So I mean, I think the Bucs are going to turn it on in the playoffs as well. I agree with you. I'm just going to show a little respect to the Packers with the 1 seed at this point. But listen, we saw the Bucs go in to Lambeau last year, and there was not an issue. But this, you would think there'd be full capacity now. We'll see. What is clear with the Bucs though is that, you know, Rob Gronkowski is the key for them. And for some reason yesterday, like they were like on third down, they were either putting him like on the bench and substituting him out, or they were lining him out like outside, like one-on-one. But in those situations, you know, it hurt them. You need to have Gronkowski on the line, or at least in the game, to block, because so many times on third down, there was nobody, no tight end was even attempting to do a chip block or anything on the defensive ends, and the Saints were blitzing. And we know, Michael, and you know specifically, that the only time you could really stop Tom Brady is if you're getting to him with pressure. And that's exactly what the Saints did. And that's why you need to, you know, Leftwich has to have Gronkowski in there all the time on third down to at least do a chip block before getting open.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to see a lot more tight ends for this Bucs offense, especially with the Godwin injury. You know, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden, Scotty Miller, they're all serviceable options. But I think really, you know, you're kind of looking for where your weapons can kind of win most. And I think the size and depth that they have at the tight end spot is huge. Getting some O.J. Howard in there, getting some Cameron Brate in there, while still, you know, obviously having Gronk, who is probably one of the best tight ends in the league, if not, you know, right there in contention. Obviously not production-wise, but with the Kelsey and Kittles of the league, you know, I think there's plenty of talent at this tight end spot to where you're looking at a weakness for a lot of other teams that don't have the linebacker core or safety play to match up with the tight end talent that the Bucs have. So if you're giving 3 tight end looks with Mike Evans and Antonio Brown also on the field, or just Mike Evans on the field, it's extremely hard to match up with that. And I think that's where the Bucs can find ways to win.
No doubt about that. All right, so before we talk college football playoff, of course, the games New Year's Eve, it's time for the last Rochman's Rookies of the Week for the calendar year 2021.
And, you know, this one is very defensive-centric, but let's get a little offense in there with Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, in another victory for the Lions, one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. 8 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown in this game. Look, the Lions came into the season with no one at wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a rookie. A lot of people didn't trust him to produce. They had Tyrell Williams. They just had a lot of question marks. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has really kind of stepped up and said, look, next year when you're looking for your new wide receivers, make sure you realize I'm going to be holding down one of those spots. And he has just been phenomenal, very great, versatile weapon, inside-outside capabilities, physical, you know, slot guy that I think is going to stick around for Detroit. Obviously, wide receiver is still a big need, but Amon-Ra St. Brown being there helps that room so much, and he is going to be someone that I think sticks around the league as a serviceable to good starter for a long time. The next player on this list is Joe Trion. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hit in this performance. The Bucs had really the luxury of picking any player they felt would contribute most to their team. They got an edge rusher, despite having Shaq Barrett, despite having Jason Pierre-Paul. They liked Joe Tryon enough to bring him in, and he's shown some very good promise. I think next year, whenever he's kind of this full-time starter, you assume Pierre-Paul probably leaves in free agency. Tryon is going to be a huge piece for this defense, but right now he's already contributing in big ways. And he put up a great performance against the Saints team. Obviously, it was a loss for the Buccaneers, but no fault at all for the Buccaneers defense. The next rookie of the week is Nick Bolton, linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, with 14 tackles, 3 pass deflections, and 1 quarterback hit. This is a guy that really had a lot of questions about his athleticism and elusiveness, ability to move in the open field, and he looked great against the Chargers, an offense that was really kind of firing on all cylinders, but they were having trouble trying to get past Nick Bolton, and he put together a very good performance. You know, Chiefs are another team that kind of drafted for luxury in this last draft, and, you know, having a piece like Nick Bolton being able to step into this linebacker unit and play at the level that he did last Thursday, you know, there's plenty of promise for him going forward, and I really like what his fit is in this Kansas City defense, and I think he's going to be a long-term starter for them as well. And then next rookie of the week is Paulson Adibo, 3 tackles, 1 pass deflection, and shutting out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. the first time Tom Brady has been shut out since 2006 when Nick Saban was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Adibo is an athletic corner, a lot of upside whenever he came in as a prospect. And people said, if he lands in the right spot, he could very easily make things work. And he landed with Chris Richard in New Orleans, and he has really kind of put together a very strong rookie season, a very talented corner with a lot of capability, nice length, nice size. The Saints needed that outside corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore badly, and he has really kind of filled in that role and been a huge piece for the Saints defense. Offensively, the Saints still have plenty of question marks, but having a piece like Adibo in this defense helps resolve a lot of issues and really puts the Saints in potential for that playoff spot after a big victory against Tampa Bay. And now for the last rookie of the week, the kicker, Evan Mcpherson, 3 for 3 for the Cincinnati Bengals in what was a big victory over the Denver Broncos in terms of just that overall playoff picture. 2 kicks of over 50 yards, one of them a 58-yarder. Evan McPherson just been really dependable for the Bengals. Had some issues, I believe, even last game, but bounced back in a major way. I think he's going to be the starter for a long time in Cincinnati as their kicker. Despite some of the issues, he's come out and had some great games like this one. And I think for that reason, he's going to be a big name in the kicking game as we continue on for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and he's the only kicker drafted, 5th-round pick. And 58-yarder is a Bengals record. So he's definitely done an excellent job this season for the first-place Bengals.
Absolutely. And we've seen some young kickers kind of come into the team and then struggle right away. And teams are quick to cut them, and then they find success later on. Like Matt Gay for the Buccaneers was cut after a year. Now he's a pretty good kicker for the Rams right now. So make sure that whenever you got a young kicker in your organization, that you give him a little trust, give him a little time to get his head steady. And, even for McPherson, who's had some bad games, he will be a very good kicker for a long time, in my opinion.
No doubt about it. All right, Michael.
So now we move on. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so now we move on to the big focus of this episode, and that is the college football first round of the playoffs that me and Nick are going to talk about. Huge matchups of Alabama versus Cincinnati, Georgia versus Michigan. We aren't going to give our championship prediction, or I guess we could, and then we'll update if the first round doesn't work out how our predictions did. But first game, Alabama versus Cincinnati. A lot of people are favoring Alabama. A lot of people aren't expecting it to be close. I assume we're both probably in the Alabama camp. But, Nick, do you think this one could be closer, or are you maybe even taking the Bearcats to upset the Crimson Tide?
Listen, let me take the Bearcats. Why not? I mean, I cannot root for Alabama, so I might as well just root for the Bearcats and pick them to win. I think Ritter's going to have a tremendous game. Crimson Tide will have no answer for him. And the Bearcats will win this game. I'll say 27-24.
Yeah, I think this one is going to be a blowout, unfortunately. I'm even taking Alabama with the spread, 13
What's
and a
the
half.
spread,
I
like
can
40?
see it being bigger. It's 13 and a half, surprisingly. So,
oh, wow.
I'm not trusting Cincinnati to necessarily win this one. Alabama's got a lot of firepower on offense. Even with John Mechie being out for the season now, I think they got plenty of weapons on this offense to kind of explode. The defense is going to be overwhelming. You look at Will Anderson, what he's going to do to the Cincinnati offensive line. There is some concerns. Now, that doesn't necessarily dismiss the idea of G5 and playoff. That doesn't dismiss the season that Cincinnati's put together. I just think Desmond Ridder has had some issues with accuracy, and I think whenever he's getting pressured by guys like Will Anderson and Drew Sanders and many other pieces of this Alabama defense, it's going to just continue to rise. Alec Pierce, I expect to have a good game. He's a very strong wide receiver for Cincinnati, but I'm going with the Crimson Tide. I'm going with Bryce Young, and I'm going with Nick Saban.
I think the Bearcats will score first. No doubt about it. Could be a field goal, but they'll lead the game at some point. So you're going with the Crimson Tide, who are likely going to win. Who will you be rooting for, though, in this game?
Oh, I'm rooting for Cincinnati. Absolutely.
Got it. Yeah. All right. The next game
So,
should be a lot better.
yeah, so Michigan versus Georgia and what will be a crazy matchup, a game that really should be one of the more exciting of the entire bowl season and definitely should be the more exciting of the two when it comes to these playoff matchups. Stetson Bennett versus Kade Mcnamara is going to be an interesting one because both quarterbacks, there's rumors of their backups being the better option. There's debate on it almost every week. There's talk of this phenomenal defensive front that they both have. There is just so much to watch in the run game. You know, James Cook and Zamir White versus Hassan Haskins and what's his name? I completely blanked on his name right now. Let me pull it up real quick. Blake Coram, who's been absolutely phenomenal for them as a true freshman. There's a lot of just excitement surrounding this game, and both teams kind of match up personnel wise. But ultimately, I think the favor leans in Georgia's favor because they're the SEC team, while the other, Big Ten, obviously still very strong program, but they've had their issues. So, Nick, in this game, Georgia, the 8-point favorites. Are you taking Georgia or are you taking Michigan? If you're taking Georgia, are you taking the 8-point spread or are you saying that Michigan covers?
No, I think Michigan's definitely winning. I think they're going to win this game. Not easily, but I think Georgia, they kind of got punched in the face against Alabama. And I just don't know if those players are going to be able to recover here despite practicing for about 30 days for this game. I think ultimately, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be too much for that Georgia offensive line. He's going to really disrupt the game big time. I think he'll be MVP of the game. And I do think Michigan will, in fact, win this one. Should be pretty close, though. But I think Michigan's going to win this game.
So when it comes to both quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett has been kind of the leader for this Georgia team, but a lot of people thought JT Daniels was going to be the guy. He kind of injured his back, and they've kind of held him out just in terms of what mostly seems to be a health precaution, but also, Stetson Bennett hasn't done anything to lose the job. Do you think JT Daniels finds the field if Georgia's struggling heading into the half? Let's say it's like a 14-3 type game and Georgia can't get its offense going.
I mean, yeah, I think if they're down at halftime and the offense looks bad again, like it did against Alabama, I think they'll have to make the change because at that point, you got nothing else to lose except the game, but you already be at that losing spot. So I think you could certainly see them go back to JT Daniels, who had success earlier in the year. How do you see this game playing out? And do you think there'll be QB controversy on either side?
Yeah, it's tough because I really like both teams. I think Michigan has potential. I think Georgia has potential. I lean Georgia in this one. And right now, I said it last time we talked about it, but I think I'm still leaning Georgia to win it all. But it kind of depends on if that quarterback switch gets made because I feel rude for saying this. I just don't think Stetson Bennett is going to win you a championship at QB. And it's not like this roster is just so much better than everyone else to where they can't have anyone compete with them. We just saw Alabama run all over them, pass all over them, really. But, you have to be able to make that switch. And I don't think JT Daniels is necessarily the superstar quarterback that's going to be like an NFL superstar or anything. But I do think that he opens up the offense a bit more. I think he creates opportunity for this Georgia team. And with that, I think it opens the window for Georgia to potentially win. But right now in this game, focused on Georgia, Michigan, if they don't make a switch at QB, neither team, then I think I lean Michigan. But the defense of Georgia is going to be absolutely dominant. It's going to be low scoring. It's tough. I'm going to pick Georgia just because I think the talent is just so much there, everywhere. Not just the defensive line, but the linebacker unit. Not just the linebacker unit, but the secondary. And then the offense, with George Pickens back, has the weapons to succeed. They just need to kind of get the passing game going. And I think that's where I kind of lean Georgia just because I don't really trust Michigan's secondary, despite how good their front seven is and how good they can kind of get the pass rush to ease what's necessary from the secondary. It still isn't as great, despite Daxton Hill being probably first round, second round pick in the NFL draft. The cornerbacks are really where my concerns are. So I'm leaning Georgia in that one. So for me, I'm Georgia, Alabama. For you, I think you're Alabama, Michigan, but you're going Cincy, Michigan.
Yes.
Championship pick. Who you got winning it all?
Well, first, Kirby Smart just spoke to the media. He was asked about the quarterback situation. He even alluded to the fact that he likes Brock Vandagriff. Maybe we'll see him in the game, the third string quarterback. But he said we don't disclose that information. We just talk about who is doing the job, and all four of these guys have been doing a tremendous job. Brock has been doing a tremendous job giving us a good picture on the scout team end. Stetson, Bennett, and JT have been doing a good job simulating the offense that Coach Monken wants to do. Like I talk about all the time, we're going to play the guy who gives us the best chance to win. So really just got to listen to that last line. That's all you need to know. As far as the national championship, I think this is Michigan's year. I think they will win the national title, and it's about time. So congratulations, Jim Harbaugh. You deserve it.
Yeah, what a turnaround that would be for Harbaugh, who it felt like he was done at Michigan. After a season of disappointment, they gave him another chance. They kind of had him take a lower salary, put more money into the idea of higher assistants. And, this team has turned around. And you have to give credit to the assistants, of course, but Harbaugh deserves a lot of praise as well for putting a year that really a lot of people probably dismissed Michigan as even being a team that could contend. And now, they're at least a top 3 chance of doing it. So still a very great year. And I think they have a very realistic chance of potentially being the champion when it's all done. So very great job for Michigan. Phenomenal season. Winning the Big Ten was already amazing. And if they can, build something and win a playoff game or two, then, cherry on top of what is already an incredible turnaround.
Yeah, I think kudos to him, and very much looking forward to seeing what he has to say leading into a national championship game. There'll be a lot of people wanting to speak with him. We'll just see how he approaches that, because let's remember, even when he was so great with Stanford, they never got to a national championship game.
Yeah, and obviously, no playoff back then, but he never really got them in that 1-2 spot. So we'll see if he can get it done this time. His biggest season was when they were the 4 seed and they played Oklahoma State, and they ended up losing in that bowl game. So we'll see what Michigan does in playoffs. Obviously, Harbaugh was able to get San Francisco to the Super Bowl, so maybe he can get Michigan to the national championship. Yeah, for me, I'm probably leaning Georgia to win it all. And again, it's going to come down to what happens at QB. If Stetson Bennett is the guy the entire way, then I'm probably leaning Alabama. But assuming that Kirby Smart's willing to make the switch, then I think Georgia has a very realistic possibility. I think any team that's really willing to upseat their QB probably gets a little bit of an advantage in this. And I think it's just the fact that a lot of these teams don't know what to expect when these new QBs step in. They've been game planning for the other guys, so it helps. Now, obviously, you don't bench like a Bryce Young if he's struggling, but, in a spot where you're Georgia or Michigan and your QB is comparable to its backup, or maybe even not as high upside as the backup, then I think it really kind of gives you a little bit of a secret advantage when it comes to this playoff picture. And, both those teams could very easily find a way to put in their backup and maybe find a way to succeed. And we saw that many times. Tua came in and really just led Alabama back to the championship. We saw Cardale Jones, the third string QB, really take over for the playoff run. And I think there was a lot to be said about the fact that teams didn't really know what to expect out of him. And therefore, Ohio State was really kind of able to take advantage of that. Now, does that mean you put in your backup? No. But does that mean be open to the idea if struggles are happening? Then absolutely, in my mind, you have to.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A few minutes left here. Michael, any other bowl games that really are catching your eye here next week? Because
let me just pull it up real quick so I can make sure I'm not missing any. But one of the big games that I'm looking forward to has to be Ole Miss versus Baylor in what will be a tremendous matchup. Just phenomenal teams in the Sugar Bowl. Baylor won the Big 12. Ole Miss overachieved all season in terms of just like the expectation. Matt Corral, I believe, is going to play in this one. Baylor, one of the better defenses in the college football playoff, or just college football picture. I mean, Dave Aranda, one of the better head coaches. Utah versus Ohio State, I think that's going to be a very good game. Ohio State probably would be in this picture if they beat Michigan. And, Utah, a team that was playing just as good as anyone in the country. If Cam Rising was their starter all season, they probably beat BYU early in the year. They probably beat San Diego State, and they'd be 11-1, 12-1 sitting in that playoff picture, I feel. So that's going to be a very good matchup. I think Utah could very easily win that one. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Oklahoma, Oregon, just because both teams now without their head coach kind of have to bounce back. Other than that, though, I'm not saying that these are going to be bad games outside of that, but there's not a lot of games where I'm like, oh, I got to see this. Oklahoma State and Notre Dame is going to be a good one, but still, just
I
mostly
just
focused on playoffs this year.
I don't know. I wanted to see Notre Dame versus Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. I don't know why they didn't give it to us. That would have been the biggest game, but then maybe the Fiesta Bowl said, we need to get somebody big. We can't have Utah, Oklahoma State. But the Peach Bowl, I'm not interested in because Kenny Pickett is not playing for Pittsburgh, so whatever. But really, you want to see how Notre Dame does under Freeman. And I think Utah is going to easily beat Ohio State. I think Ohio State is just not going to show up for this one. They don't want to be there. No doubt about that. But you're right about everything else. There really isn't anything that kind of jumps off the page and, is like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I think the Tax Slayer Bowl, Wake Forest and A&M should be pretty solid, just because two teams that did well this year, despite some circumstances, especially A&M who had injuries. But, I think I want to pay attention to Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte for North Carolina versus South Carolina, because I want to see how Hal plays for UNC, because it really was a down season for him, but he's still going to get some draft love.
Yeah, I think he's still very worthy of a first-round pick. The surrounding talent for him was not strong this year. The offensive line kind of limited the offensive potential. Howell probably is a guy that goes late first, early second, but I think there's plenty of reason to think that he could still very easily find success. And, Orbit's Bowl, I think, is one that maybe deserves the credit. Or Cheez-It Bowl, sorry, Clemson versus Iowa State. That's going to be a good one. Clemson kind of got things going finally in terms of just being able to put together the talent. Iowa State, very good team. And then the Holiday Bowl of UCLA versus North Carolina State. UCLA with Chip Kelly, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. What seems to be his final game with the Bruins, I think he's going to enter the draft. Dylan Gabriel committing to UCLA, so I believe that means that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is on his way out. North Carolina State put together a very good season. So two quarterbacks that could very easily be in the NFL draft in Thompson-Robinson. Thompson-Robinson and Devin Leary. And, two very good QBs that could very easily put together a good performance in this game. So keep an eye on that one.
But I just want to touch on one real quick because, we got a game with two places that lost their head coaches. So Oklahoma taking on Oregon. Oregon, of course, renamed their coach. But I think if Bob Stoops pulls out a win here for Oklahoma, he might get that itch. And I think we could maybe see him coaching again at some point.
Yeah, that's very possible. They already announced their coach, actually. Brent Venables is going to be their guy. So, but
I just think
it's hard to see him coaching elsewhere other than Oklahoma.
I'll say, yeah.
So before we sign off, I do want to really quickly just go through these big games that are going to happen for Week 16 when we're not here. 49ers Titans, big one for Thursday Night Football. Who you got in that one? Quick picks, so Titans. We don't have to stay on too long.
Titans. I need it.
All right, I'm going with the 49ers in that one while Derrick Henry's out. Browns Packers. I'm going Packers as well. Colts Cardinals.
Cardinals. I need it. they're
I
gonna
think I'm going with
bounce
the
back.
Colts. They're one of the hottest teams in football right now.
Oh, so that means
Ravens,
if that
Bengals.
happens, you'd have the Colts in first place then, or tied for first.
Possibly, I think
Ravens,
there's a chance.
Bengals. I'll go with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the Bengals. And kudos to the Bengals for not firing Zach Taylor in the offseason, where a lot of people are saying, "Gotta get rid of this guy."
Absolutely. Rams, Vikings.
I think we're gonna pick the Vikings. I think they need that. I think I've been saying they're gonna get the wild card, so I think that they're gonna win that game. They'll surprise people.
And then the last one we'll do Patriots versus the Bills.
Bills.
We already talked about it earlier, but
Bills. I mean, they should have won that game, but the wind conditions were really bad. I think Josh Allen's the only guy in the league who could probably have made the throws he made in the wind, and Stephon Diggs had that big drop in the end zone. So I think level playing field here. Josh Allen's going to continue to run all over the Patriots, and I think the Bills are going to win that one. How about you?
I'm leaning Patriots just out of bias, but we'll see. We'll see. I definitely think it's going to be favorable to the Bills, but we'll see if the Patriots can still control it. That's all we got for you here on Destination Draft Day. Thanks for staying with us a little bit over time. We'll be back in 2022 for plenty of draft content, plenty of college football and NFL talk.
Playoffs.
This is your best spot to see it all. So
hopefully we get some more Tuesday night football, Michael, because there's nothing like Thursday night. Then you get Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday night football. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, the people that are always trying to watch a movie with me or something. I'm like, oh yeah, no Monday, no Thursday, no Saturday, no Sunday.
You can't see Spider-Man
like, Wednesday.
When the Raiders and Browns are playing at 5:00 on a Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. It just changes everything. So that's all we got for you. Hope you guys have a great holiday season. Stay safe out there with everything going on with Omicron. Obviously, hopefully nothing too bad comes from it, and you guys can stay safe. For here at Destination Draft Day, though, if we get locked down or something, no better place to spend your Monday and Fridays, 4 to 5 Eastern time. For now, though, take care. We'll see you guys in January for more football content. Peace.
Happy New Year, everybody.